Hello there. Welcome to Leading with Heart and Intention, episode number 2. Hello, my name's Inga James, and I'm the founder and principal consultant at Organizational Renewal Group, LLC. In our last episode, we explored empathy, understanding others to better lead them. Today, we're building on that idea by talking about something I believe is equally powerful: individualization. The art of tailoring leadership to the person, not the position. If empathy helps us connect to what people feel, individualization helps us understand how they function. It's how we lead real humans, not job titles, not roles, but people with their own rhythms, strengths, and stories. Welcome to the second episode of Leading with Heart and Intention, customizing leadership for real people. Imagine two managers faced with declining staff morale. Manager A sends a team-wide email stating, "We need to refocus on productivity and hit our metrics this quarter." Manager B, on the other hand, schedules brief one-on-one check-ins. She starts each conversation with, "Tell me what's making you work harder right now and what would make it easier." Both managers address the same issue, but only one is meeting her team where they are. Guess which team rebounds faster? That's the essence of individualization, the ability to notice patterns in people and adjust your approach accordingly. It's not favoritism, it's fairness through flexibility. Now, this is where leadership can get tricky. Many leaders worry that tailoring their approach might seem inconsistent. But the truth is, consistency in leadership isn't about treating everyone the same. It's about treating everyone with the same level of respect and care, while acknowledging their differences. As one well-known leadership author, Marcus Buckingham, puts it, the best managers don't try to make everyone the same. They figure out what's unique about each person and capitalize on it. That's the heart of individualization, noticing what's distinct and using it to build collective strength. Individualization is defined as the ability to see unique qualities of each person and to design interactions, teams, and systems around those differences. Research from Gallup shows that employees who strongly agree that their manager focuses on their strengths are nearly twice as likely to be engaged at work and 6 times more likely to feel that their work is meaningful. That's because individualization builds a simple but powerful psychological message: you matter here. When leaders notice how people think, communicate, and recharge, they create conditions where each person can thrive. And when people feel known, they contribute their best energy and ideas. So what does that mean in practice? It means assigning tasks based on strengths, not just job descriptions. Adapting communication. Some team members want the big picture first, and others want the details. Understanding that equity isn't giving everyone the same thing. It's giving each person what they need to succeed. We can't assume that everyone's energy, attention, or trust levels are the same. Individualization honors the human conditions that influence performance: grief, fatigue, optimism, burnout, hope, etc., etc. When we tailor our communication and expectations, we send a signal, "I see you." And when people feel seen, they show up differently, more open, more motivated, more collaborative. Recent studies reinforce this. In a study of 580 tech industry employees, team psychological safety was found to significantly boost innovative performance, and the mechanism was found to be better communication, more open sharing, and stronger collaboration. Empathetic leadership was found to be a strong precursor to psychological safety. In other words, when leaders show genuine interest and support, teams feel safe, and then innovation follows. That's how trust turns into creativity, and creativity turns into sustainability. In fact, Gallup data from 22 found that teams led by managers who personalize their approach report 40% lower turnover and significantly higher well-being scores. And here's the kicker. Those managers weren't just nicer, they were more effective. They understood that leadership is relational, not transactional. There's also compelling evidence that individualized leadership is a major predictor of retention. Gallup's 2023 workplace analytics showed that employees who strongly agree that my manager understands me as a person are 59% less likely to look for a new job and nearly twice as likely to report high organizational loyalty. Individualization drives retention because it creates a sense of fit, the extent to which the employee's needs are met by the organizational environment. A study published in Frontiers in Psychology in 22 found that leaders use individualized consideration, listening to personal needs, adapting workloads, and co-designing goals. Turnover intentions drop significantly, even in high-stress sectors like human services and healthcare. The researchers concluded that one customized interaction can have more impact on retention than dozens of generic morale initiatives. When people feel understood as individuals, they stay. When they feel interchangeable, they leave. Transformational leadership has long been associated with inspiring collective vision and motivating followers to exceed their expected performance. At the heart of this approach is one of its 4 core behaviors: individualized consideration. In other words, treating team members as unique individuals with distinct needs, strengths, and motivations. Recent empirical research confirms that this linkage. For example, a study of 535 managers in South Korea found that transformational leadership significantly boosted employees' innovative behavior, and that this effect was mediated by commitment to change, a commitment that was also fostered through leaders recognizing individual experiences and tailoring support rather than enforcing uniform expectations. That finding aligns precisely with our focus on individualization. When a leader embodies transformational behaviors, the one-size-fits-all model gives way to a dynamic collaboration between staff and leadership. The leadership stimulates intellectual growth, models shared purpose, and adapts their approach based on individual team member profiles. Employee satisfaction and commitment rise when leaders individualize their approach. A 2023 meta-analysis in the Journal of Management Studies showed that personalized leadership behaviors, including adapting feedback, recognizing unique strengths, and honoring personal work styles, were strongly linked to higher job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and discretionary effort. These effects were stronger than those associated with standardized leadership and uniform performance management systems. Why? Because individualized leadership enhances what psychologists call perceived organizational support, the belief that my organization values my contribution and cares for my well-being. When that perception is high, employees report stronger emotional attachment to the organization, higher motivation, and greater willingness to go above and beyond. As one researcher put it, commitment grows when people feel seen, not as roles, but as humans. Individualization creates that emotional connection, and connection fuels commitment. Individualization is not only a leadership strength, it is a core equity practice. Modern DEI research shows that people from different racial, cultural, and social backgrounds experience the workplace differently, and therefore require different kinds of support, communication, and psychological safety to thrive. Equity scholars such as Daryl Smith and Ella Washington argue that inclusion deepens when leaders shift from treating everyone the same to meeting people where they are, honoring the unique identities and lived experiences they bring to work. A 2023 Catalyst study found that employees who report their managers tailor communication and support based on personal needs rather than applying rigid sameness experience greater inclusion, higher trust, and stronger allyship behaviors from leaders. Individualization in this way becomes a DEI amplifier. It helps prevent the kind of unintentional bias that occurs when leaders assume everyone processes feedback, stress, change, or conflict in the same way. When leaders personalize their approach, they signal your identity and experience matter in how I lead you. That is the foundation of equity, and it transforms inclusion from a policy into a lived experience. In that way, individualization becomes more than a tactic. It becomes a strategic leadership dimension rooted in the broader transformational model. For you as a leader, this means that when you tailor your communication, tasks, and recognition to the person, you're not just practicing fairness, you are deploying leadership in its highest form. So how do you bring individualization to life in your own team or organization? Here's a simple tool you can try. It's called the engagement grid. Take a sheet of paper and draw 4 columns. First column, you write the team member's name. In the second, you write what motivates them. Third, the title is how they prefer to communicate. And then fourth, what kind of support helps them thrive. Now fill it out and update it quarterly. It doesn't have to be formal. You can gather insights through regular one-on-ones, casual conversations, or anonymous pulse surveys. Over time, patterns will emerge. You'll start to see who thrives with autonomy, who needs more structure, who prefers written updates, and who blossoms through collaboration. And this is where leadership becomes an art form. It's about fine-tuning your rhythm to the rhythm of your people. Think of your team like a symphony. Each instrument has a unique tone and tempo. Your role as a leader isn't to make them sound the same, it's to help them harmonize. That's what individualized leadership looks like, a careful, ongoing composition of trust, communication, and understanding. Now, if you want to go deeper, you can pair the engagement grid with a brief self-assessment question for each team member. What does good support look like to you? That single question opens the door to psychological safety. It shifts the narrative from what's wrong with this person to what does this person need to succeed. Let's look at what happens when leadership takes a one-size-fits-all approach and how failing to individualize can erode even the most promising organization. A well-known example comes from Yahoo. You all remember Yahoo, right? This was during the early 2010s. When Marissa Mayer became CEO in 2012, the company was struggling. It had lost its innovative edge and was racing to compete with Google and Facebook. Mayer brought remarkable intelligence, energy, and technical skill. But her leadership choices revealed what happens when we lead by standardization instead of individualization. Early in her tenure, she implemented a sweeping policy requiring all employees to return to the office full-time. It didn't matter if you were thriving remotely, balancing family responsibilities, or part of a distributed engineering team that had worked that way for years. The new rule was absolute. Everyone back in the office or find another job. Her goal was understandable, to rebuild collaboration and accountability. But in practice, it sent a different message. We don't trust you to know how you work best. At the same time, performance expectations became increasingly rigid. Employee evaluations were standardized across departments, measuring people by identical metrics rather than by the unique value they brought. High performance, who thought Differently, high performers who thought differently or worked unconventionally were sidelined. Creativity flattened under the weight of conformity. Within a few years, morale dropped and top talent began leaving, not because they didn't believe in the mission, but because they no longer felt seen. They were treated as interchangeable parts in a machine that prized uniformity over individuality. The cautionary lesson here isn't about one CEO or one company. It's about what happens when leaders forget that systems don't create innovation, people do. And people need to be led as individuals. Leadership consultant Mike Myatt, who studied Yahoo's decline, wrote, Mayer's approach reflected a failure to engage employees on a personal level, to connect their individual motivations and strengths to the larger mission. That's the heart of the problem. When leadership becomes procedural instead of personal, trust erodes. If we look through the lens of individualization, the warning is clear. Leadership that treats everyone the same will eventually lose the very diversity of thought it depends on. Fairness isn't sameness, it's understanding what each person needs to contribute their best. And when leaders stop adapting, employees stop engaging. By 2017, Yahoo was sold for a fraction of its former value. Mayer's tenure became a case study not just in strategy, but in culture. A culture that had forgotten how to honor the individuality of its people. So what can we take from this? Individualization isn't indulgence, it's insight. It's about knowing your people well enough to lead them wisely. When we take time to understand what motivates, challenges, and restores each person, we create conditions where trust and performance can thrive. Because no matter how brilliant our strategies may be, they only work if people feel known, valued, and included in them. So let's take a moment to pause and reflect. Think about your team or even your family or community group you're part of. Ask yourself, who thrives with autonomy and who needs more frequent check-ins? Who lights up with public praise and who prefers quiet affirmation? Who may need more structure right now and who's ready for freedom? Leadership isn't one tone for all. It's about learning the melody of each person and conducting with care. Here's your challenge for the week. Choose one person you lead or collaborate with and adapt one thing. It could be your tone, your timing, your feedback style, or how you communicate expectations. Then notice what shifts. You may find that a small change in your approach creates a big change in staff engagement. As we've seen, empathy and individualization aren't just soft skills. They're the twin engines of effective leadership. One helps you understand people. The other helps you lead them in ways that truly fit. And when you bring these two together, empathy and individualization, that's where sustainable leadership begins. And that's what we'll explore next week in episode 3. Empathy and individualization equals sustainable impact. We'll talk about how caring for people translates into healthier systems, stronger retention, and organizations that not only survive change, but grow because of it. Until then, keep noticing, keep listening, and keep leading, both with heart and intention. Thank you so much for joining me today.